The moon accepts your ridiculous proposal.
Hi everyone, welcome to Priority Holder, and today we'll be playing 8 Moon, 8 Mox in the Timeless format. So the name sort of explains what's going on. We're playing all 8 of the moon effects, Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon, as well as 8 Mox effects in Chrome Mox and Mox Opal. So Chrome Mox is pretty easy, like you just stick non-artifacts under it and it works. Mox Opal takes a little more building around, like you have to have like a density of artifacts in order for it to do its thing. But they do have a little bit of tension with each other because you can't tuck artifact cards under Chrome Mox, you know, so we have to sort of get creative in having a high enough artifact count. So the way we do that is with non-artifacts that produce artifacts. So Ragavan makes treasure tokens, so does Fable the Mirror Breaker. So you can sort of strike the right balance. You can get there with like MDFCs for Chrome Mox also, and then also some artifact lands to make Mox Opal work. So the idea is just sort of like a red value deck that's trying to, you know, lock people out the Blood Moon and then finish the game with Ragavans and Furies and stuff like that. So let's jump to some games. Alright, this is a pretty nice hand. We have options for turn 2 Blood Moon or turn 2 Fable. The question is, what do we lead with? And of course, against hand disruption, you want to like dump your fast mana out there potentially to protect it. But it's unclear what we're playing against, so I'm just going to hold on to it. Not only that, but it helps us be more informed as to what we tuck under if we wait a bit. Alright, so opponent goes Basic Forest into Chrome Mox to see what they tuck. Alright, so they tuck an Azusa under it and then play a Lotus Cobra. So quite the explosive turn from the opponent. And we have like a million options right here. You know, we could play Fable, we could play Blood Moon, we can pitch cast a Fury, and then there's also the choice of what do we tuck under our Chrome Mox. So it's you know, it may seem a little weird against a Basic Force, but I'm really inclined to play a Blood Moon here. The reason is that this really seems like a strip mine deck. Like the fact that the Azusa's in there and that they have like landfall synergies with Lotus Cobra. So I'm going to stick a spare Fable under Chrome Mox because we need to get to 3 mana. And I'm going to slam Blood Moon, and because I'm fearing that this is like a strip mine lock deck. So we want to not fall, you know, victim to that. And I'm also going to pitch cast a Fury. This is like a lot of cards are spinning right here, but the thing is Lotus Cobra accelerates them and also sort of gets them out from under Blood Moon if they're multiple colors, you know. So it is quite costly, but I'm counting on this Blood Moon to actually be helping us right here. We got to see what the opponent's follow-up is. Ancient Tomb and Pass. So they would have had a ton of mana, but we like really stifled their development. So I'm going to play the Great Furnace, slam Fable, and Fable is just super strong. We'll see where that takes us. Alright, so I'm feeling pretty good right now, but then the opponent slams a Karn the Great Creator, which is actually like a pretty massive problem. They're just going to nuke our Chrome Mox right away. We run a ton of artifacts. You know, Great Furnace, Treasures, Legion Extruder are all shut down by Karn. So I'm actually going to keep this in hand because it's like a burn spell. Like we can't activate it under Karn, but it'll help us knock Karn's loyalty down. So that's why I kept it. There is an argument to like trying to fish for like a Fury, but right now Great Furnace, our treasure, everything's being shut down. So I'm gonna deal some damage to Karn and just really hope we can chunk in the last bit. Alright, so this is super interesting. The opponent's gonna channel Beseiju at our Fable instead of the Blood Moon. So I guess they must not have any strip mines that they're worried about. So they just wanted to reduce our board state, I guess. So they're gonna take down our Great Furnace. And Ragavan was the perfect draw. It's amazingly clutch right here because that's going to allow us to take down the Karn, you know, assuming they don't have any lightning bolts, because we haven't, you know, they could technically have red spells. We've locked them out of their fetches, you know, so. But it looks like it's going to work. We take down Karn. Now, all of a sudden, our Treasures and our Legion Extruder is unlocked, and Ragavan jumps back into hand. So, feeling a lot better about that. And it's obvious the Blood Moon is bothering them. Alright, so there's Ice Tool Explorer. So it is now abundantly clear that they're a strip mine lock deck. So it's still going to be able to play lands from the graveyard, possibly mill our lands, but we're like really nerfing it right now with our Blood Moon. I'm actually played a mono green strip mine deck of my own, so I'll go ahead and link that right now. So what do? Well, another moon effect seems pretty strong. So I'm going to slam a Magus of the Moon. That way, like if they find another Beseiju, for example, and pop our Blood Moon, like they're still locked under Magus, you know. And I'm preserving Treasures right now because we really want to be able to cast like One Ring or Fury should we draw them. So that's why I didn't cast Ragavan. None of that. It can't attack through Ice Till anyway. So the opponents could do the play lands, mill lands, dance, and Great Furnace is not incredible right now. And trying to decide whether to play Ragavan out or just hold on to it and decide just going to play it out. And now, we can technically be making 3/3s with Legion Extruder, but they can't attack through Ice Till. Oh, and there's a Chalice from the opponent also, so really awesome green deck they put together with some prison elements in it. So, alright, I'm going to go ahead and make a token with one of the treasures now that we've picked up more mana sources, and this is exactly what we've been waiting for. Like a One Ring would have gotten us to a Fury eventually, or even like a Legion Extruder to like do some post-combat damage to Ice Till, but Fury's going to be massive right here. We're going to shoot down Ice Till, and it's going to unlock almost all of our attackers, and yeah, the opponent's seen enough at that point. So on to the next game, just Massacre to Strip Mine deck, on to the next one. This hand is very risky. I almost mulliganed it, but I just kept up the strength of turn 1 Ragavan. Not to mention that we have Pitchcast Fury in case something goes like horribly wrong from the opponent, but we have potential turn 2 Blood Moon. Now the thing is, the opponent plays a blocker. However, we can just cut through it by pitch casting a Fury. And so I'm actually, Blood Moon is typically the more stable of the two immune effects versus Magus, but considering they have Haywire Mites in their deck, I was actually wondering if I should pitch the Blood Moon and keep the Magus as possible. Anyway, it just made me pause for a second to wonder if that was the correct choice. But in the end, I decided that Blood Moon is still probably more robust. So I'm going to get rid of that, attack in, and that's going to create a treasure. And we needed the treasure both as a mana source and as a third artifact to turn on Mox Opal. So we're going to play the Mishra's Bauble, play the Mox Opal, and use the Opal first. That way we can slam a Blood Moon. Now, like, our mana sources are pretty much toast right now because we just turned off Opal, but I'm really hoping that, like, the opponent is just majorly mana screwed right here. Or they did slam a basic, but they didn't have a follow-up play. So I'm going to crash with Ragavan and see what we find off the top of their deck. And it turns out it's a Nadu deck that we're facing. And I was going to just pat, like, wait a second, like, Nadu's pretty awesome. Like, we can cast it right now off Mox Opal and our treasure. So just have to be careful, with like, because if we sacrifice the treasure, then it turns off the Mox Opal. So going to sequence it correctly so we can get a Nadu into play. And here I'm thinking, like, do I deal some damage to the Nadu to start the little train? But I figured, okay, let's see if they play a creature, then we can still direct a point of damage at Nadu and draw. But yeah, the opponent got locked out by Blood Moon. So on to the next one. This hand is just way too many moons in it, so I mulliganed. Feel a lot better about this one. Like, we did have the potential, like, Ragavan into Blood Moon, but if the opponent just bolted Ragavan, then what were we doing with our life at that point? With the first hand, this one has a lot more options. All right, so Chrome Mox and the opponent sticking a red card underneath. It makes me realize this is not going to Blood Moon matchup. All right, so opponent dashes Ragavan turn 1 and steals a Shatterskull from us, which does nothing right now. Okay, so just gonna play our own Ragavan summoning sick right here and pass. Like, I'm trying to think whether I should block or not, assuming they dash Ragavan in. They could dash it and then bolt at the Ragavan, our Ragavan, so. But I'm going to accept the trade here, despite us needing mana desperately, because I don't want them to, like, amass a ton of treasures and then get way ahead of us, so. This is sort of unfortunate. We're going to be possibly start missing land drops. Just checking what they have in exile to Terror of the Peaks. So like they look like some sort of big red deck. And going to just go ahead and Legion Extruder. I was trying to decide whether I should save it, but getting artifacts in play, like let's say we draw like a Mox Opal, for example. Well, if Extruder's already in play, that with Great Furnace means Opal's online. All right, so there's Broadside Bombardiers crashing in. And let's see what we have. All right, so we finally find another mana source. However, I'm very worried about Broadside Bombardiers because it can just shell out a ton of damage. So I'm just going to Fury it down right here. Respect it too much. It's just a dangerous card to leave around. All right, so Fury is dead. And Fable should help us like find the mana we need to get, eventually cast One Ring and then go on from there. So let's see what the opponent has. And the opponent waits for a second and just slams a Fury. So that is pretty unfortunate that our source, our guaranteed source of mana disappeared. However, we did draw an Ancient Tomb. I'm just going to decline the discard because we do want to slam One Ring right here. And I was trying to figure out how to tap it. I wanted to actually leave one red open in case we drew a Ragavan off the One Ring, but it left open Strip Mine. So that was sort of a misplay by me. I should have been more careful about the auto tapper. We ended up just drawing a Mox Opal. But yeah, if you like seeing a red prison decks battle it out, please network disrupt the like button. So now we have Legion Extruder up, which obviously can't block Fury, but it can still add to the board. We have a 1-turn like reprieve from Fury attacking us. Alright, so they're going to Sundering Eruption our Ancient Tomb, which honestly we're okay with. Like, we've already lost a bunch of life, and don't mind changing that into a mountain at this point. Especially because it's not going to allow Fury to like crash in unblockable. Honestly, the opponent maybe should have like held on to that to like try and cruise in for some sneaky damage. I'm going to go ahead and make a Legion Extruder token, trying to figure out what to sacrifice. Decide Mox Opal is probably the most vulnerable of our artifacts that we want to get rid of. So, alright, another One Ring is good. At least we can replace the ring if it gets too tricky for us. And then we find another Blood Moon and another copy of One Ring. So I was just thinking about what to do here. I was like, we're going to just slam a new One Ring and keep drawing, but the opponent just saw that we outcarded them and was ready to move on. So this hand looks amazing. We got turn 1 Ragavan, options for turn 2 Moon or Fable. Alright, so opponent has turn 1 Ley Line of Sanctity plus fetch land. So trying to think about what to play here. And wondering about leading on Great Furnace. I think I could have just led on Great Furnace. I'm not sure if there's anything I really need to worry about, like as far as playing artifacts out too early. I'm gonna just play the Mishra's Bauble and then pass. The thing is, like, we do need Great Furnace out there to turn on Mox Opal, you know, so like there's that thing to consider. Alright, so the opponent's just going to foretell something, and I could see that they have like a very greedy mana base. And so this is going to be a really juicy Blood Moon right here. So we're going to see what we pull from the opponent, and it's a Wrath of the Sky. So they're probably like some sort of 4-color control deck right here. So I'm trying to think about the best way to proceed. I'm just going to Ancient Tomb out a Blood Moon and going to play a Mox Opal. Now we could actually play Fable right here, but decide just to wait. And yeah, the opponent seemed like we locked him out hardcore that time. So next game. This Chrome Mox doesn't look amazing in our hand unless we tuck a Fury, which is not a card you like sticking under Chrome Mox. Like it's obviously matchup dependent, but Fury is often your most important card to draw. So I'm braced myself to just lose right here to Show and Tell with Ancient Tomb into Chrome Mox, but they actually tuck a red-black card. I'm like, okay, very happy to see that. Turn 1 Fable from the opponent. So this could be also like another prison deck, or just like red-black mid-range. So I love playing red-black variants. I'll go ahead and link a red-black deck of my own right here. Just going to Legion Extruder down the Goblin. Like, we don't want them amassing treasures at all. And I'm going to hold on. Trying to decide. Oh yeah, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and play out the Chrome Mox with the Blood Moon tucked under. Like, they're probably also playing Blood Moon, so not going to really worry about it. Alright, so they're going to discard a spare Ancient Tomb. Play a Strip Mine. Curious if they're going to use it on us. Alright, so they are going to use the Strip Mine. Let's see if they have anything else. Alright, like to see that. They didn't play anything. Alright, gonna slam the Chrome Mox. So the thing is, we can actually cast Fury right now, which, you know, clocks opponents pretty quickly, but often the most important part about Fury is being able to remove threats, you know? So I decide I'm just going to use a Legion Extruder here upstairs. Getting excess artifacts into play helps because you can just, you know, start making golems off the Legion Extruders, you know? So don't mind doing that. I just want to hold on to Fury for like the potency of like how strong a blowout it can be. Alright, so the opponent has an Orcish Bowmasters at the end of our turn. So very glad we held on to Fury. And going to pass back to them. And it's going to set up like a really good situation for us because now, you know, the Fury is going to be an absolute massacre for them with the flipped Fable and, you know, Orcish Bowmasters plus the token. Alright, so they're going to crash in with a solo creature. So they might have sniffed out like our onboard trick, you know, like we can use Legion Extruder to make a golem. So I'm going to sacrifice the second one. And I was wondering if this could be like an Orcish Bowmasters, you know, like to ping down our creature. Alright, so they're going to fetch, shock, and use a Bitter Triumph, which is pretty costly out there. And also, there's a slight mistake from the opponent. They should have done that before blocks and just gotten a little extra damage. But now it's just going to be like an absolute massacre of a Fury right here, where we're just going to take down all 3 of their creatures and have just a huge threat in play. So this is the power of Fury, you know, like in the control matchups and combo matchups it does nothing, but man, in these creature matchups it is so strong. So, and yeah, that's enough for the opponent. It's going to clock them in like 2 turns. So next game, have some artifacts, have a Chrome Mox. Alright, another Leyline of Sanctity. I hadn't seen those in a while, but already, you know, like 2 games with Leyline. Let's see what the opponent has. Nothing. Alright. Now, don't love them seeing fetching out a basic because, you know, we have a turn 1 Moon right here with Magus and Ancient Tomb and Chrome Mox, you know. But they've already grabbed a basic, and so this is me hesitating because I'm like wondering if they have like Mana Tithe up or something like that. Gonna stick Shatterskull under Chrome Mox, and I'm just going to slam Magus anyway because they did use a fetch land, so like they could be running multiple colors, you know, but it's obviously not as good now that they've already latched onto 1 basic. Alright, so opponent's going to go Mountain, Chrome Mox, away their Blood Moon. So turns out we're playing a fellow Blood Moon deck, and they're going to cast Fable. I still need to get a hold of that awesome art. I haven't got it yet on Arena. Alright, and Chalice. Alright, so this is a full-fledged red-white prison deck, which is an archetype I love to play. So I'll go ahead and link my own version of the deck right here, but it's an honor to play another prison player at the moment. Alright, so they're going to pitch a Lightning Helix to Fable, crash with the Goblin, and I'm actually wanting to unlock Ancient Tomb to help us get more mana, so I'll happily trade for the Goblin token right there, especially because it's doing nothing to the opponent. So going to, once again, like we can slam a Fury, but it just seems better to wait and use it to actually take down a creature. So I'm trying to figure out if, anyway, so I'm playing around Mana Tithe right there. That's what was happening. I was about to play it and I'm like, you know what, like let's not get cheesed out by Mana Tithe, you know, so just in case, who knows if they actually have it, but considering they're a Chalice deck, they probably don't. You know, they're probably not running 1s. Alright, Fable flips, and we have like an absolutely stacked hand right now, so the opponent's going to need something. Now, I think that's one big strength about this deck, is that it has a lot of card velocity between the Mishra's Baubles, the Fables, and the One Rings. Not to mention Ragavan stealing stuff from your opponents. Like, you just have a lot of ways to see a ton of cards, and I think that's like one strength it has. Alright, so I'm just really trying to figure out what to play here, but honestly, like, it's hard to go wrong. Like, we're massively ahead right here. Don't want to go too crazy on the damage, because, you know, like, One Ring and Ancient Tomb can eat us alive, and they might be able to burn us out with Lightning Helixes if we're not careful. Alright, so they're going to Lightning Helix down the Fury, we take down the Fable. Thankfully, we still have mana for, well, I'm going to cast the Mox Opal into a Chalice for 0, you know, so that was a mistake because we need cards. We could use those extra Mox Opals in hand to pitch to Fable the Mirror Breaker, you know? So that's a mistake right there by me. Alright, so opponent's going to Journey to Nowhere our Ragavan. And here's our life total sort of suffering at the moment. I'm just going to keep drawing off One Ring because we want to find another copy of Ring to save ourselves from taking too much damage. That being said, you know, I like playing black decks, and you know their philosophy is greatness at any cost. So we're just going to keep taking tons of damage to keep accelerating our threats out. So the question is, do we strip mine them? Because I'm tempted to play another copy of the One Ring right here, but I'm just thinking like how powerful it is. Well, okay, I actually don't end up strip mining them. I think it's because I wanted to get enough threats out to like really start threatening them. It is dangerous if the opponent like finds like a Flage or something like that, but honestly, like they're riding on 1 plains and a treasure token right now. So I'm gonna just pitch the Mountain, and we're sitting in the driver's seat at this point. Now I forgot to set a stop, but before the second Fable goes up, I'm gonna draw with the One Ring, because that just gives us more options for like the discard, the rummage effect, you know. So if I was a little more diligent, I would have done that before both of them gone off. But at least got it in before one of them. Alright, there's some useless Mishra's Baubles with that Chalice across the battlefield. And let's see what we can steal from them. Like maybe we could steal like a Bombardiers or something like that. Alright, didn't really steal anything. And we're going to start taking like massive damage from our One Ring. So we basically have to play it right now. And now I'm interested again in playing Magus to basically convert our Ancient Tombs into mountains and make it so we have more usable mana. So going to play the One Ring and probably not drawing off it anymore. Like it's just a little too risky. And trying to think about what to do. At this point, it seems like to constrict their options, going to strip mine the plains. Like they still have a treasure, but it's going to really limit what they can do. And trying to think about what else to play. And like I said, I sort of am interested in turning off the Ancient Tomb damage to ourselves, because we know they have direct damage. So I'm going to sacrifice a couple treasures and play Magus of the Moon. And now we could just also, well actually no, we can't target them with Legion Extruder and all of our creatures die to it. So not wise to play it right now because we'd be forced to shoot down one of our own creatures. Alright, so game's not over yet. So the opponent slams the Chandra Torch of Defiance. So that could draw them into some action right here. Alright, so they're going to +1 Chandra. And it's just a land. So thankfully our ring protection helped us right there. Not drawing off the ring. I don't want to take any more damage at this point. We're so far ahead, like, you just don't want to get too careless and die to, like, double Lightning Helix 2 turns in a row or something crazy like that, you know, so. Or if we let our life total slip, it could have been, like, you know, Chandra plus Lightning Helix, you know, it could have gotten ugly. So, going to hard cast a Fury right here. We're safe to use Ancient Tomb under the Magus. Gonna deal all the damage towards Chandra. And I'm already planning on using Legion Extruder to finish off the Chandra. Rather than the attack damage, because the opponent is hexproof right now, so we can't actually even point the extruder damage at them. So it makes sense to use it on the Planeswalker because it's much more profitable that way. So the opponent's in major trouble. Alright, so we bricked again off the opponent's library, but we're okay with that. Like, it's now or nothing now. If they play like Anger of the Gods or something like that, you know, we'll have to, you know, we still have a lot of action, but that could really put us back to the Stone Ages. So we'll see if the opponent rips like a sweeper right here, and that's it. They're going to pass the game up and on to the next one. All right. Not pass the game, concede. All right. So, another good hand with Chrome Mox. And once again, going to wait, like you can get burned by like Inquisition sometimes by not playing your fast mana, but just depends. All right, so opponent's going to shock in a red-black land and pass. Now what do we do? So we can slam a Blood Moon right here. The thing is, we'd have to tuck a Fury, but against red-black, Fury's typically like really strong. So, but at the same time, like we could really constrict what they can play right now by locking them out of black mana potentially. So I decided to slam the Blood Moon, even though it's really costly to use our Fury under the Chrome Mox. All right, Corey Steelcutter. Feeling a lot less happy about tucking the Fury now that we see Corey Steelcutter hit the battlefield. So that is just like a super strong card. All right, Ragavan. So I'm just gonna take down the Corey Steelcutter token right here. Just like we're, you know, constricting like what they can do, and not only that, but the monk tokens have prowess. Like it can get really out of hand if you let too many of them amass. So I'm gonna just play a Ragavan. Now we might be just setting ourselves up for like, you know, Lightning Bolt Ragavan, Lightning Bolt our face. Here comes Corey Steelcutter again, but you know, we just gotta play our spells. All right, so they did draw a couple cards right there. All right, so we shut down their strip mine. All right, so Chrome Mox. I'm curious actually if they're gonna tuck something, but yeah, they want to get some black mana, so they're gonna tuck a Fatal Push. Now this is not good. Orcish Bowmasters. It's bad for 2 reasons. So it's going to kill our Ragavan, but also it leaves a Draw Punisher in play, like right when we were hoping to get our One Ring out, you know. So that is really lame for us. Good for the opponent though. All right, so Pinnacle Monk. Before I start any One Ring stuff, I want to just take down Orcish Bowmasters right here. We could have maybe played the ring, but like it starts growing their Orc army, and like things just get out of hand. This way we have a Legion Extruder activation, and we could play One Ring next turn, except the opponent has another Orcish Bowmasters, so don't love that. They're using it pre-combat to set off a Corey Steelcutter, so we have to see what their follow-up spell is. Alright, Bolt to the face. That's a ton of damage right there. we'll have to see what we can do about it. Alright, take a bolt to the face. And they're going to move Quarry Steelcutter onto the Bowmasters, I think, just to try and maximize damage. But I don't know if they forgot about our onboard trick with Legion Extruder, so I'm going to sacrifice the spare one and block down Bowmasters to unlock one ring. But the opponent, I guess they were out of action because it still felt like we were pretty behind. But they didn't like that, or maybe they're just so upset they missed the onboard trick. You know, I don't know. But we take those and move on to the next game. Gonna lead with the Shatterskull. The reason I was hesitant is because sometimes that can like hugely telegraph a Blood Moon if you play like a red MDFC. Alright, so opponent's gonna play a red-green Surveil. And so I was wondering about just playing Mountain to try and not telegraph it as much. But it looks like it's gonna do at least some work right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and play Magus of the Moon. Worried about the sort of sweeper effect in the graveyard because like all of our creatures get hammered by it. I think that is that Anger of the Gods. It's one of the 3 mana, 3 damage sweepers, you know. All right, and better than I could have even hoped. The opponent passes and discards a Deathrite Shaman. So they kept a sketchy hand, but with the green source and the Deathrite Shaman, they were gonna hope that did some work. But we like completely locked them out of green, such that they're in massive trouble. So, and then they miss. We see them pitch a crop rotation, so it's pretty clear that they're like a red-green strip mine deck. Like there's probably like Renin 6, Deathrite Shaman, you know, that kind of stuff. So I've actually played like red-green Ponza. I'll go ahead and link one of those videos right here. Gonna keep crashing in. Now the question is, the opponent is like massively behind. So this is one instance where you might want to slam a Fury just to like really try and clock them. I decide, once again, because Fury's so good at like just nuking creatures, I'm going to just hold on to it because, you know, we can activate Legion Extruder and still add to the board, you know. Alright, so the opponent did find a way to unlock their green mana. It took them quite a long time, but they found a lightning bolt that's going to unlock their land. But the thing is, like, they're already in massive trouble right here. Because, sure, it unlocked their land, but it also unlocked our strip mine, you know. So I'm agonizing over here which one to use, because if we sacrifice the treasure, then Chrome Mox gets, well, actually it wouldn't get turned off because it gets replaced. Anyway, should have sacrificed the treasure there, it turns out. But yeah, we're just going to strip mine them. Give them a piece of their own medicine, probably, like assuming from the cards we saw that they're a strip mine deck, but they're just in massive trouble right here. But sometimes you keep those speculative hands, you know, like they probably have like, you know, Renin 6 and a lot of other juicy stuff in hand. We just lock them out pretty efficiently, so we can kill them from this point. And yeah, that's it for the opponent. So on to the next game. This hand is reasonable. You know, we got the Ragavan into potential turn 2 moon effect, so a couple spare moons. We have to see if the opponent, you know, they might just have an answer for Ragavan straight up, and then we have to go back to the drawing board. Okay, Unholy Heat, so back to the drawing board. We were sort of leaning on that as a mana source. Always have to note priority passes from the opponent, so they have something else they could have played. Maybe it's a Mishra's Bauble, like for like they're holding on to it so they can play like a Dragon's Rage Channeler, you know. So, but there was a priority pass. All right, gonna play the land and just pass. Considered just using Legion Extruder on their, you know, upstairs, but I figured blue-red is probably gonna have a lot of targets for Legion Extruder, so I wanted to hold on to it. Alright, so they're actually going to Bauble themselves. So they must be trying to really sculpt their hand better. And they didn't like what they saw. So as the opponent cracks their fetch, let me know in the comments, like, what's your favorite hybrid deck? Like, this is sort of Moon plus artifacts. One that I've seen in the past, a long time ago in the modern format, was like Living Twin. It was Splinter Twin and Living End melded together. And I thought it was so awesome. So let me know if you have any other cool hybrid decks that you've seen. Now this is a really tough turn, so the opponent has presumably set up a Delver Flip with the Preordain. The opponent's tapped out of stuff. There's no Force of Negation yet. It's coming real soon in the format, so like it's really safe to slam a Blood Moon right now. But it's also safe to try and take down their creature. But maybe next turn, you know, they start holding up Mana Drain and we can't guaranteed Fury stuff down. So I decide to Legion Extruder, and the thing is, Blood Moon is also not as lucrative because they have a basic island already, you know, and they are, you know, so Anyway, opponent's going to go Quarry Steelcutter. I'm not certain about that last turn mine. I think I maybe still should have slammed the moon. I think I was sort of hoping on drawing another land, strip mining their island, and slamming a moon, you know. This is not good for us, though. So they have, you know, the second spell for Quarry Steelcutter is a Tamiyo. And they're going to crash in with Quarry Steelcutter. And hoping... Alright, so another Fury is not the worst. So trying to figure out what to do here. The opponent like could already have like a Brainstorm in hand, and I really don't want Tamiyo to flip. So I'm going to start by pitch casting Fury to take down Tamiyo. And it's just like a nasty permanent, like just gets so much value, like, and also if it makes a couple clues, then it can help get them out of the moon, you know. So, and then I'm going to slam a Blood Moon at this point. Not feeling amazing because Quarry Steelcutter just does so much work. Alright, so the opponent at least has to think a little bit thanks to our Blood Moon. They're down to 1 blue source. Alright, so they're going to fire up a Brainstorm. And at least they can't shuffle right now with like a fetch. So they could have flipped the Tamiyo had we left it out. We at least know that. Now the thing is, the opponent is also red deck, you know, so we're not completely stifling them with the Blood Moon. So they're going to Mishra's Bauble to get the other Monk token and crash in. And we'll have some decisions to make on our turn because our life total's falling quickly. Alright, so they're going to get their Bauble draw, and we draw a red source. So we can't hard cast Fury, otherwise that would be pretty nice. So just going to slam the One Ring. It's going to give us like a turn reprieve from their creatures. And see if we even draw like a red card right here. Alright, so we draw a Blood Moon. So the question is, do we pitch cast Fury here? And I think I should have. I think this is a mistake not to use it. The reason is that we have Ring Protection, so if they only had red mana, so if they had bolts, they would have had to bolt their own face, you know, to save their creatures with prowess, you know. So now we've let them untap, and also we're a valid target for like red damage spells and stuff like that. So as costly as it was to pitch cast Fury there, I think that was the choice because it would have made their life way more difficult. Now we're not in like a horrible position here, except for the fact they have 4 cards in hand. So I just gotta hope they have all blue spells. Like I am seeing priority passes, so I figure like with second Fury doing some cleanup, like surely this is going to work out somehow. The thing is, these are prowess creatures we're dealing with, and like, you know, they can grow out of range of Fury's damage. So I divided up some damage. The opponent's going to double Lightning Bolt us to the face, and you could see right now how things can go wrong. Had I done the pitch cast under Ring Protection, they could have saved their creatures, but it would have actually required bolting themselves in the face, you know. So I'm desperate here, and I'm going for pure upside. Like there's still priority passes, but like, all right, like if I don't know, maybe I should have allocated the damage differently and just focused it on 2 of them, like the 2 ones with 1 toughness, for example. Because now I let them protect all their creatures from Fury. All of them are going to survive it. So I think I was just way too, especially in the second Fury, should have just done 2 damage to each of the 1 toughness creatures, and then maybe we could have got there. But we fall in that match and move on. And I think that one was winnable, though against an active Quarry Steelcutter, like you never know. Like we you know, the opponent had Brazen Borrower also. Like it could have, it was not great for us. But I do think I messed up. Alright, this opponent's going to crack their fetch, get a basic swamp, Dark Ritual. I'm already bracing for impact, but it's Unstoppable Slasher. Now we don't run any Lightning Bolts in this deck, so I'm actually pretty worried about that. So that creature, when unblocked, halves your life total, you know, with the trigger. So let's say like we let it hit us right now, we'd fall to 18 from the damage, and then our life gets halved. So we basically, with 1 attack, it puts us down to 9 life. Which, as an Ancient Tomb One Ring deck, that's not great for us. So, I'm going to turn 1 Fable, and I'm giving up the Moon because I see a basic swamp already out there, like in Dark Ritual, like they're at least heavy black, and maybe the fetches are just there for fatal push revolt triggers, you know. So, I'm not even bothering with the Moon. Now, I played the creature because I wanted to block and preserve some life total, but it does really suck. Like I was wondering, like, do I need to wait till I have another creature out and I can at least double block it? Because I was just planning on slamming the One Ring next turn. However, the opponent has the Strip Mine, so that is really bad, and they go ahead and play a Cecil. So seems to be like a mono black aggro deck, and trying to figure out what to do. One Ring seems too slow at this point. Like, we don't have enough mana to use it. Like, I guess we could draw into an Ancient Tomb potentially, but I'm actually trying to find a pitch card for Fury right here. Alright, so there's Ragavan. Or, you know, instead of like pitch casting Fury, because we are somewhat close to casting it, we could just play Ragavan on defense and try and hard cast a Fury. The reason hard casting Fury is good because it actually blocks all their death touchers just fine with 3 damage first strike, you know. So that is, you know, we'll have to see if the Ragavan, you know, just eats a fatal push or not. Alright, so they're crashing in. I'm not blocking because I need that treasure off Ragavan to potentially cast Fury. So we're taking a massive hit right here, down to 8. Have to see what the opponent's follow-up is. Alright, so I'm going to crack their fetch. Alright, so it's a blue-black Surveil. So they might have like Psychic Frogs and some other stuff in there. Alright, so there's an Ancient Tomb, which is a pretty risky proposition at this point, considering they have such, you know, Unstoppable Slasher is such a nasty creature. So what I'm going to do is attack with Ragavan, and it managed to hit, which is amazing. And not going to play Ancient Tomb, and not going to play Thoughtseize. Like, we just don't have enough life to play with. But going to hard cast Fury right here. And that is going to be amazing for us. It's going to take one of the creatures out of commission, and if it doesn't die, we'll get access to Reflections, copying Fury, and we can just mow down all their stuff. Because the thing is, like, if you kill Unstoppable Slasher, it just comes back with a couple stun counters. I decide it's the most frightening creature on there, so I am going to hit it with Fury, even though it does come back. But I figured, like, if we can just survive one more round, then all of a sudden we have a Reflection, copying Fury, and then we're in the driver's seat, you know. So it took us letting a huge hit go through. Alright, so the opponent passes. Legion Extruder doesn't deal enough, you know, damage to kill any of their creatures. So I'm trying to decide whether it's worth it to try and activate on Fury right now, or to like wait till their turn, or like their end step potentially. But I decide, like, they're at such a low life total, like this is actually extremely threatening right here. So I'm going to copy the Fury, and like they could have blown it out with the removal spell, like I know that, but the thing is, like, Fatal Push doesn't kill Fury, you know. So going to blast their creature and just crash in right here. So this is actually lethal right here. This is just the power of Fable plus Fury, you know. Alright, so opponent's going to crack their fetch, get a basic, and they're flashing an Opposition Agent. So I actually haven't really tried Opposition Agent yet in the format. Like, it seems like it could be good, but also seems like sometimes just does nothing, you know. So the opponent's going to take a ton of damage. We still have Thoughtseize. It's tempting to Thoughtseize them and make sure all avenues are clear, but I am worried about falling that low, you know. But it seems like with what the opponent has, like, I don't know, I guess they could have a Damnation, but yeah, it turns out that's enough. Well, that was super fun, and honestly this deck is like pretty dang powerful. Like, won a ton of games right there. Like, I don't think the deck's like invincible by any means, and like we probably got lucky in some of those matches, but you know, some people are just not prepared for an early Blood Moon. Like, if they can't find a Chrome Mox soon enough, they're just toast a lot of times, you know. So you can just steal wins that way, and it has like a little bit of resiliency and like a reasonable amount of card velocity with One Rings, Fables, Ragavans, you know, a couple Mishras, Baubles. I don't think the list is like ironclad by any means. Like, there's still, you know, maybe it's incorrect to run only 2 Mishras, Baubles. You know, I was just trying to figure out the right balance of artifacts from Mox Opal and non-artifacts for Chrome Mox. You know, so it's sort of like a juggling act. Maybe you don't want all 8 moon effects. Maybe you only want like 2 Magus of the Moon for 2 Mishras, Baubles. You know, like there's some tweaking you can do. I do really like this deck's direction though. So this actually was inspired by a comment someone made on one of my previous Moon videos, I think, or maybe it was an artifact video, where they suggested 8 Moon, 8 Mox, 8 Blast. And so I originally was going that direction with like Shrapnel Blast, Galvanic Blast, but I couldn't quite, like, it just sort of is at odds to like playing like heavy burn spells and like a sort of prison-y deck that's trying to Blood Moon people out. So I eventually converged onto this list that focuses on the Moxen and the Moons, and it felt like really, really good. So really happy about where this landed. You can also consider Experimental Synthesizer or Quarry Steelcutter as like early artifacts, though Quarry Steelcutter needs a little bit more like building around to like really shine. Broadside Bombardiers, just for like power level, needs to be considered. was even looking at stuff like Samurai's Katana, and I've actually been trying to like make a deck around Lodestone Golem for a while. Like I know like it used to be pretty potent in like Legacy and Vintage, like you could cheat it out really early off, like a Mishra's Workshop or like City of Traders. Like we'd honestly would need like City of Traders to like really make it work. I don't. Let me know if you found a way to make it work. But I've still been tinkering with it. Haven't quite given up yet. You know me, I'm always considering Chalice of the Void. Like you could like cut the Ragavans and throw in Chalices, but I honestly really like the Ragavans in this deck. Like you just need a little bit more threat density, like not too many do nothing cards. I've already played prison decks that press that like way too far. I'll go ahead and link one right now. It's just ridiculous. Melted Moxite, something I was considering, but it's just not like a super powerful card. And then Fiery Confluence is like a new tool for like sort of the medium to big red decks to sort of deal with like energy or pop a bunch of Chrome Moxes, you know. So, but yeah, I really like where this ended up. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.